The most I've ever been impressed that I can think of with Hudson Card is a game that he played against Alabama when Alabama was Alabama and Texas was nothing close to what they are now, or so we thought, but they had the makings with Sark as the head coach a couple of years ago in Austin, a game that if who was it? Ryan Watts hadn't made a dumb hit on no. Wasn't a penalty. He whiffed on Bryce Young in the backfield, would have ended the game. He would have had a 12-yard sack. That would have thrown him back. They don't win. Bama wins at the gun in Austin. But Quinn Ewers got his first big start in that game. That was his second start overall. Looked great in the first quarter, gets knocked out of the game. Hudson Card comes in, had been the part-time starting quarterback at Texas for a couple of years at that point, rolls an ankle, guts it out, almost beats Bama, plays the entire game minus his best asset as a quarterback and gutted it out. He was obviously paired with a rookie head coach last year in Ryan Walters. Things didn't look great. They had a tough non-conference schedule. They finished 4-8. They've got a week to prepare with a bye week leading into this one. They rolled Indiana State 49-0. Devin Maccabee's a guy that's been at Purdue for quite some time as a bit of a bowling ball running back. This is a renewal of what has been a long-standing rivalry that many of us, the focus is on when are they going to play Michigan, when are they going to play Michigan State. But for those of us who also enjoyed the Purdue games back in the day, we like to see this one get going. So based on what you've seen on tape, what do you think of these Boilers?
Well, first of all, my order of preferred opponents in that three is Michigan State, Purdue, Michigan, and then Michigan. Look, there's good and bad to this matchup, Mark, and here's what I mean by that. They are a big physical team. They are very big in the trenches. They are a true 3-4 defense. Like, you even watch them when you go spread out, they're still going to have their 3-4 personnel on the field in the first and second down. They've got really three big D linemen, two long, athletic edge players, a 255-pound middle linebacker. Their small guy is Yanni Karlaftis at 6'3", 235. That's their small guy in their front seven. Not super, super talented outside of a couple guys, but they're big, they're veterans, and they're outside of Will Help, they're very experienced, and they play hard. And same thing on their offensive line. They're slightly bigger than Northern Illinois is. So you look at the matchup and you say, well, this is an issue that Notre Dame has been having. They've been getting beat in the trenches the first 2 weeks, especially this past week against Northern Illinois. And this is a Purdue team that when Purdue started getting better late in the year, Mark, and they've now won 3 of their last 4 games under Ryan Walters, it's because they finally started really running the football and having success running the football. And they obviously ran the football well in the opener. And they're going to watch Notre Dame and say, hey, they can get run on. And so Notre Dame is going to get tested in the same exact areas where they struggled the first 2 games, especially this past week. So that's the concerning part of this matchup. They are a pretty good run defense, or at least they were late in the year. They weren't very good early in the year, but in the last 4 games, I think the math I came up with earlier, Mark, is they were something like they've given up like 114 yards per game rushing at the end of last year in their last 4 games. That includes holding Michigan to, I'm looking at it now, 3.2 yards per carry and only 110 rushing yards in a game against them last year. So it's not like they did it against, all bottom dwellers, because this is what he's building to. This is what he did at Illinois, right? It's shut down the run, and they're willing to give you some matchups on the perimeter, but we're going to make sure you don't run the football on us. Well, for Notre Dame, that's been kind of kryptonite so far the first couple games. And so that's the concerning part of the matchup. The positive is, Mark, is if you get those parts of your game going, your run defense plays really well on Saturday, you run the ball well, then you earned it against what's the best part of Purdue's team. And so that's the encouraging part of it, is they're going to test you where you are struggling. So you're going to find out if you got better. Because, sometimes you can struggle against something and your next 4 opponents aren't good at that, so you don't really get tested. They play to your strengths, and so you improve and you get better. But then the next time, 5 games later, you play a team that's really good at what you're not good at, you get exposed again. Well, Notre Dame's going to find out real quick if they've been able to make some adjustments and make some changes, because Purdue is going to come at them the same way Northern Illinois did. A lot of different looks on offense, a lot of motion shifts, trying to get leverage, spacing, getting your backs out in space, getting your receivers out in space. They're going to run the ball between the tackles. They're gonna come and stretch at you. They're gonna try to get some of your kickouts that worked so well last week on you. They've got decent sized backs. They're not huge, but neither was Ontario Brown. And they've got a quarterback that's a mobile quarterback. I wouldn't call him a dual threat guy, but he's a good athlete that can scramble when needed to. He can move the chains if he needs to. And so you're going to be presented with a lot of issues that have been a problem for your football team here for the first 2 weeks, which makes it concerning on one end, but then also like, okay, if they step up and play well and do what they should, then it tells you that they got better, and they got better quickly. And they, at least for 1 week, figured it out.
Notre Dame back on CBS for the first time, and it's got to be forever, taking on Purdue as a 10.5-point favorite for a guy that likes the numbers. I'm not a gambling guy. I've not put money on a game in 10 years, but I do like the numbers. I enjoy the math of it and the trying to beat the man in Vegas. So I'm foolish enough to make predictions every week and make them available for all of you to make fun of me when I miss as many as I did last week. But Notre Dame at 10.5, that's going to be a tough call for me, I got to say. 10.5 on the road. I was thinking it was going to be a little bit higher than that, and I was going to safely take Purdue, but I'm going to be wavering back and forth on this one. I was thinking maybe
after watching Notre Dame the last 2 weeks, I would probably just keep my money. Because we don't really know what Purdue is yet, right? Like, they played a really bad FCS team.
Yep.
And, I thought they looked good. They've got some decent talent, but with this Notre Dame team, you'd have no clue what to expect. Which team's going to show up? The one that showed up against A&M or the one that showed up against Northern Illinois? I have no idea. No idea.
We've got a college football show hosted by me every morning, folks, at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So lock it in on the main channel there, 10 a.m. Eastern every Monday through Friday with me. And like I don't have enough shows to host, we're premiering our Ole Miss live show Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time with Leanne Herring from the Rebel Walk. So that's going to be a good time. Ole Miss live, that's over on the SEC and the Ole Miss channels. Brian, what's going on there at Irish Breakdown this week?
Oh, just a lot of venting this week, to be honest with you. Tomorrow we'll do our prediction show, and we'll do our Keys to Victory show, and Friday we'll have a mailbag. But today I kind of went through the game records for both teams, that guys that could really turn this game around. I kind of gave an overview of Purdue. I actually like what Ryan Walters is doing. He's recruited a lot of size. They're big and strong. Their receivers fit their offense. They're all like 6'3", 6'4", 200 plus pounds, that kind of thing. And just kind of going through that, just trying to figure out what this team is going to be, what this team is going to do. So it makes it a little challenging to evaluate this football team and get people excited about this football team, because it's just hard for people to get that taste from Saturday out of their mouth. And I got to be honest, like, normally you get real mad about it on game day. Then Sunday you get really frustrated because you start watching the film and all that. But by Wednesday, you've moved on and you're ready for the next opponent. And a lot of fans aren't ready to move on yet. And I can't blame them. I was talking to my dad about that today. I was like, God, I'm still kind of ticked about that game. And it's not that they lost, it's just the way that they lost, just the no compete level. So just trying to move on past it. But then, something comes up in the show that kind of triggers me to start talking about the game again and the frustration from the game. But it's been a challenge, but we're just kind of powering through. We did yesterday. We talked about what's at stake for Notre Dame this weekend, and talked about what we need to see, and the fact that they got to get quarterback figured out. I don't care what they decide to do. Fix Riley Leonard, go to Angeli, go to one of the young guys. I don't care what it is, but you need to figure it out and get that position going. And then, like I said, tomorrow we'll dive deeper into the specific keys to victory, and then we'll do our game predictions.
And for guys like you that have to take on the onslaught of not just the fan base, but all the opposing fan bases as well, that just the name Northern Illinois, regardless of people actually taking into account how good the team is, that's going to stay with this program for a few years, just like Marshall has, etc.
Yeah, well, it depends on, and it should To be honest with you, I mean, it should stick with you. Like, look, I think I said last week, it's a very good football team. This team's not going to be afraid of Notre Dame. They're very well coached. They're going to do this, going to do that. They're very experienced, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's all true, but it still doesn't justify Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois. Like, there's no excuse. There's no, well, or, but this happened, and well, you got to think about this and their experience. This is a really good Group of 5 school that has no business being competitive with Notre Dame for 4 quarters. That's the reality. Like that there's just, so the only thing that's going to kind of make it go away is you're going to have to go on a very long run the rest of this year that includes at least one huge postseason win, meaning like you're going to have to beat somebody really good and at least be in the semifinals because you knocked off Georgia in the quarters or something like that. That's the only thing I think they can do to kind of to put this game completely in the rearview mirror, in my opinion. Because like nobody really talks about the fact that in 2016, I do, Clemson got beat at home in November by an 8-5 Pitt team. Like nobody talks about that. Why? Because they won the championship. So who cares? You know what I mean? And so that's kind of the way you look at it. It's like, hey, they won the title, so that's what you talk about. They just had an off day, right? When but that's the kind of success you need for people to forget about it. And honestly, you brought this on yourself if you're Notre Dame. I mean, you did lose to Northern Illinois. Georgia didn't. Ohio State didn't. Ohio State destroys MAC teams regularly, but Notre Dame didn't. They got beat. And this isn't like Ben Roethlisberger's Miami of Ohio either, right? You know what I mean? Like it's not that. But Notre Dame's had now 3 clunkers against MAC teams, Mark, and it's frustrating because they beat a bad Ball State team 24-16 in 2018. They needed Jack Cohn to save them late in the 4th quarter to beat Toledo, and that was an okay Toledo team. I think they were like 7-6 or something like that, And then you go out and get beat by Northern Illinois, so it's very frustrating, very frustrating.
Well, Brian, hopefully you can get past it. But again, when the expectations are what they are at Notre Dame, yeah, the Purdue win's not going to do it, or whomever after. It's going to take an accumulation of wins or reaching a goal of the playoff and maybe a playoff win to get to that place in terms of evening out what we saw last Saturday.
It's like, and it's got to be a playoff win over somebody that people respect. Not like you got to the playoff and played Memphis in the first round. Yeah, Memphis is a good football team, but like that's not the kind of, and then you get the Big 12 champ in round 2 and you beat them. It's like, okay, nobody cares. It's got to be like, oh, you played Bama and beat Bama. Oh, okay. Or, oh, you played Texas and beat Texas. Or you played Ohio. It's got to be something like that. Because otherwise it's like, yeah, okay, but you couldn't do this. Yeah.
That is the standard.